Today, I will present our accepted paper in SecurCom 2021 named Poison Attack for Inter-Agent Transfer Learning. My name is Zelei Cheng from Purdue University. To begin with, let me introduce some background about reinforced learning. Reinforced learning is learning how to map states to actions such that the expected return can be maximized. The agent learns a policy through the interaction with the environment, and the environment will give the feedback in the form of numerical reward. However, there are many challenges in reinforced learning. One of the greatest challenges is the high sample complexity. So what is high sample complexity? For example, exploring the environment to gather more samples in robotic applications can be very dangerous and may cause damage to the robotic platform. Transfer learning leverages the previous knowledge in one or more source tasks to assist the current task. Recently, it has been combined with reinforced learning. So in the teacher-student framework, we can leverage the experience of another, more competent agent. Samples of previous interactions with the environment will then be mapped to the student's policy space. Moreover, the teacher is not limited to human experts, but also well-trained reinforced learning agents and the reinforced learning agents learning in process. There are two types of inter-agent-teacher relationship here. The first one is one-to-one teacher-student relationship, which means one teacher teaches one learner. So here, it is a pairwise communication. The student or the learner will raise an inquiry to the teacher, and then the teacher will evaluate the situations of the student and then give some action advice. There are generally two cases for one-to-one teacher-student relationship here. The first one is fixed pair, which means the teacher is fixed. And the second one is flexible pair, which means any teacher from the candidate group can be selected to teach at any time in the learning process. To accelerate learning faster, a concept of policy dissolution can be used here. Russo proposed policy dissolution for this one-to-one teacher-student advising scenario. The corresponding loss is defined as the KL divergence of the teacher's policy and the learner's policy. Simon proposed kickstarting reinforced learning agents, which uses the reinforced learning loss plus lambda times distillation loss as the total loss function. The second type of inter-agent teaching relationship is many-to-one. So here, n teachers teach one learner. So we may need to consider a scenario where n teachers give different advices. So how can we handle this scenario? Naively, we need to consider an aggregation rule to handle different action advice cases. The most simple one is majority voting rule. The student will take the majority of the action advice as his next action to execute. However, we may need to consider the instruction reliabilities in the teacher-student framework from the perspective of security. Here are some potential reasons. First, the query or the instruction might be corrupted or lost due to, for example, a faulty communication channel. Second, teachers can be compromised, hacked, or might have malicious intentions. Third, even though we assume that all teachers are benevolent, teachers might have worse policies than the learners in some situations, and therefore give bad instructions that should be discarded. However, how to perform instruction reliability determination effectively is still an open problem. So here is our research question. How to construct an efficient attack to pollute learners' policy? Our research goal is to use poison attack to pollute learners' policy and decrease the learner's reward, and then we want to confirm that the instruction reliability is a real concern for transfer learning-based reinforced learning applications. So here's our proposed system model. We consider a multi-agent setting, where a pairwise advising relationship is established. For simplicity, we assume that teachers and learners have the same task, so there is no need to measure the similarity between teachers' tasks and the learners' tasks. Especially here, we only consider one-to-one relationship, which is most common in transfer learning with its applications to reinforced learning. So here, one teacher teaches one student, and the advising form is action advice. So the student will raise a query to the teacher, and the teacher will give action advice. In our research, we considered 3 different query models. Before we talk about the query model, let's introduce a terminology we need to use here. State importance value, which is defined as IS is equal to given some state, a current state S. IS calculates the range of the Q value, which means the maximum Q value minus the minimum Q value. The 3 query models in our research are random query with probability P, here P is a parameter, ask important, where the state importance value is beyond some threshold, ask uncertain, where the state importance value is below some threshold. Now comes our threat model. The attack goal is to pollute the student's policy and minimize the student's long-term accumulated reward. And then we assume the attackers may have the following capabilities. We assume that the attacker can use arbitrarily reinforced learning algorithm to learn the optimal policy. The malicious teacher can use a deterministic, random, or stochastic policy to teach agents. And here we assume there are 2 cases for the attacker's background. The first one is full knowledge. The attacker is actually a genius or an expert. He knows well about the environment, which means he knows the optimal policy. This may serve as an upper bound for our research. The second case is partial knowledge. The attacker only knows the environment by his own interaction with the environment. His policy cannot be guaranteed to be optimal. So here he will use his estimated optimal policy. Now we formulate the poison attack as an optimization problem. The objective function of the optimization problem is to maximize the KL divergence of the advisorial advising policy and the optimal policy. The constraint is that the reward after executing the teacher's action advice should not be much different than the reward after executing the action sampled from the optimal policy. By solving this optimization problem, the attackers can successfully launch the poisoning attack. Here's our evaluation. We choose hallway GAN as our evaluation environment, where agents receive +1 reward by navigating to the opposite states in 17-grid hallway. For the students' reinforced learning algorithm, we choose Q-learning algorithm with epsilon grading method. And this figure shows a general framework, which illustrates Q-learning with query model. Here we can introduce different query models into the algorithm. For the query model, as we mentioned before, we will consider 3 different ones: random query, ask important, and ask uncertain. For the attacker's advising strategy, here are some comparative cases. The first one is honest teacher, where the honest teacher always advises the optimal action. For the malicious teacher, there are 2 cases: fixed policy, always advises the worst action, and a grid search-based policy. Numerically search the advising policy, given the aforementioned optimization problem. And this is our experimental results. We evaluated our experiments in 3 different query models: random query, ask uncertain, and ask important. And there are 4 curves in each figure: without a teacher, honest teacher, malicious teacher with fixed policy, and a malicious teacher with grid search strategy. Generally, an honest teacher can accelerate the learning process of the student. Compared with the case that no teacher is involved, a student can gain higher rewards with an honest teacher or with an expert. Nevertheless, malicious teacher can actually damage the student's learning process, especially for the ask uncertain model, which means the second figure. Under the instruction of a malicious teacher, the student will learn almost nothing. It is probably due to the fact that at the beginning of the learning process, the student is unclear, so he needs the teacher's assistance. A malicious teacher will give him wrong instruction and make him not learn any useful information from the feedback provided by the environment. And also, in these 3 figures, we can see that our proposed poison attack can actually damage the student's learning process, especially in ask uncertain cases and ask important cases. Our proposed attack is very effective. So now we need to talk about some future work. We would like to study how to guide the learner to a target policy on the one-to-one framework. And we can try more complicated cases. For example, grid war, StarCraft, real robotics tasks. And then we can investigate other more complex teacher-student relationship. For example, many-to-one. Many teachers advise one student. To conclude our research, in this paper, we investigate the one-to-one teaching relationship or framework. We demonstrate that inter-agent transfer learning is vulnerable to our poisoning attacks that give poisonous action advice to the student during the learning process, and we formulate finding such poisonous action device as an optimization problem. Through evaluation, our results highlight that we need to consider the instruction reliability when using teacher-student frameworks and reinforcement learning. And these are the most important references in our research. So that's all for my presentation. Thank you for your listening. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me. That's all. Thank you.